I'm Dalton Dale, a music enthusiast on a mission to learn about my favorite genre, heavy metal. Join me as I listen through and learn about the history of heavy metal music. We'll be talking about bands, albums, songs, and historical events that helped create the metal music genre as we know it today. This is the Hevolution Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Hevolution Podcast. I am your host, Dalton Dale. I'm so very excited to be here with you guys today, and I am extremely excited for this week's episode. It is a very special episode, one that means so much to me, and it was an absolute blast to put together. I've got an interview coming up to you with Matt Carter, the guitarist for Emery. Now, he is more than just the guitarist for the band. He helps manage the band and helps produce and write most of their songs, and is also a podcaster and has many podcast journeys that he's taken part in, most notably the Bad Christian podcast, and more currently Songs and Stories with some of his other bandmates, Toby and Devin, and they feature other musicians along the way. It was an absolute thrill to talk to Matt, and he was so very gracious to give his time, and it was just it was an absolute honor to speak with him. And so I will be fully candid with you. Spent a lot of time cleaning up the audio. Matt took time out of his busy schedule and recorded this from inside his car. So you may hear a little bit of audio artifact, and we recorded this over Google Meet, which decides which camera it's going to listen to and point at if you're watching the video based on any kind of audio. So you may see little blips here and there. Tried to clean up everything as best as I could, but I think that what I came out with was really, really great, and I'm excited to share it with you all. So I'm just going to drop you right into the interview, and I hope you enjoy. Again, thanks for joining. This is, I got to be completely candid with you. This is kind of like dream, like high school me is just kind of freaking out a little bit, and just really grateful to have you on the show. And I had messaged, I messaged Toby, and Toby said that you were the guy to talk to, and so he gave me your email. So you can blame him for all of this.
Well, I'm glad to do it. I enjoy, it's cool. It's cool. When were you in high school?
I graduated 08.
Oh, eight.
So
Cool.
yeah, so 04 freshman year, the week's end, that was what got me into Emery. So I mean, I've been with you guys for the haul of it.
Well, to set the timeline right, I graduated in 97, so that puts us in relative terms. And then Weeks End was 2004. That's kind of cool to just trace where that is. And then, of course, this it's totally on my mind exactly now, exactly the beginning of this year. Weeks End is 20 years old. It came out in January of '04. So we're like 3 weeks away, less than 3 weeks away from its actual 20-year release date as we tape this. This episode probably comes out close to the anniversary itself, so maybe we'll time that up. I don't know when you schedule this, but yeah, we're right on 20 years of a Weeks In, so that's cool to place in time. You were a ninth grader?
Yeah, freshman in high school. Yeah. So a buddy of mine, Evan Shorey, introduced me to you guys. Played walls in my freshman geometry class, and for the whole class, I'm pretty sure 2/3 of the class thought we were crazy, but we dug it. So yeah. So I guess for the listeners that aren't familiar with you, I've gained a good bit of followers just from Facebook friends and things like that. A lot of those are past BC clubbers and people like that, people that are just generally into the music scene that I'm into. But I've also got some followers that are outside of that. So for those folks, I guess give a little bit of introduction to yourself, who you are and what you do.
Well, I am the easiest thing I can say is I'm a guitarist from Seattle. That's really cool to me to say from where I grew up and who but I play in a band. I'm 44 years old and I play in a punk band I started 20 years ago. I mean, that's who I, maybe am if I meet somebody and they try to figure out what do I do. It's kind of that simple. And that trajectory started for me just a few years earlier. I got into music and I immediately became a organizer of people. So to most of what I've done in addition to play guitar in my life has been obsessed with trying to get people to cooperate and collaborate to make stuff together and figure out a way to make that happen. So that's really determined a lot of my trajectory and skills, is what does it take not only to play music but to get people, have a bass amp, get somebody to learn this part, get a gig, to keep it going, not fall apart, manage the relationships, manage the business. And the technology and everything's changed so much over the course of when I've been doing it since 96 or whatever. I've been obsessed with that same kind of idea. So what I do is or I coordinate Emery, and the skills that I have that are attached to being a do-it-yourselfer. I help coordinate other organizations that are similar to creative organizations, and then the other thing I've done a lot of is podcasting. So a lot of people know me just as a podcaster. So I've done various podcasts and been involved with various band creative organizations, and that's all I've been doing since I was about 16.
That's wild. I think for most creatives, or people who are familiar with the creative industry, they know the grind it takes to sort of build a career out of that. And for you now to be over 20 years out, doing this, and just having shifted it with the times. I know we can get into this a little bit more later, but Emery shifting with to the do it yourself, and kind of, that's, I mean, to me that's really punk rock roots, is that do it yourself sort of mindset. But then going through that phase of the music industry where everything was really label oriented, and then kind of taking that back into do it yourself, and then also just branching out into the podcasting arena. I know I had met people through the BC Club and the Bad Christian podcast who had never heard of Emery prior to the podcast, and just knew you from podcasting. So what has that been like, I guess, for you to have people who know you separately from your original sort of passion?
Well, the two biggest things that I've done, as far as things that people might want to say blew up or got this momentum or rode a wave, Emery's the first one, and that exploded in 2004-5 along with many things. There were people and bands and a scene that was emerging then, that we had the timing right on. We're a little ahead actually, but and then it turned. We were able to catch that wave. We were ready when it happened. We were in the right place somehow. And then podcasting, really similar. We just were in the right place at the right time. Had been early enough to ride the wave where podcasts were that this thing people were discovering, and we were podcasting and somehow good at it, or had something, I don't know about good at it, but had a unique thing that we were offering in the time when they were getting adopted and discovered by users in some similar way. And if not for that, it would have been very different. I would have maybe just had to go straight or get a job or have some other career. But the wave of when Bad Christian blew up was about 2013. 13 we started, 14 it really happened, and it's like, oh, this is something. And that was the point where our genre and our band were at probably the lowest between what I consider to be cycles, like of the genre going down, things move in cycles. We're in a resurgence of that now, which is very nice. Didn't know that would ever happen or was ever coming. And so the podcast was something that happened when we were considering, well, what else is there to do? The band stuff is at an all-time low. There's less and less opportunity, but it's still worth something, and we'd like to keep it going. And then when Bad Christian, hit, it gave the band an extended and even new life. Like you said, people were discovering the band because it was the guys from Emery doing this podcast, and it had its own wings or legs or whatever. And so then they were able to work together, and that got us through to today, where there's a resurgence in emo and the types of things that we do musically. So we have now the podcast is no longer like making money or blowing up. Podcasting's on a down cycle, but the band's on an up cycle again. So we're still here, still surviving. And so without that, those two things, the trajectory would be totally different.
Yeah, I mean that's really cool how that the timeline of that panned out for you guys. I mean, I think I started. I think I discovered the I don't what was the blog called before you guys were doing Bad Christian, because I saw something that somebody shared that Toby wrote or something like that.
Okay, that's really interesting because I'm trying to explain to people right now that podcasting is like blogs. It is a form of what starts out as creativity, and it becomes known and people are doing it, and then at some point it's just a marketing channel or when it starts, it's like this art form. When blogs first emerge, it's like, oh, there's bloggers. What do? Well, they do this blog thing, and eventually blog is a section on every company's website that's just some marketing channel. Now podcast is then podcast emerged, and now they're kind of in that place. Like if you have a brand, you have a podcast as one of the marketing channels. But at some point, podcasting felt like an emergent form or medium or art form. And now, again, it's more of a container, and it's just there's good things that are in podcasts, but it's not blowing up as a creative thing in the same way. But so when blogs had that cycle, that was earlier than podcast. And so we wanted to communicate more than just put out an Emery album every here and there. Every few years, put out an Emery album, there's some lyrics in it. And it felt like there was a lot more to connect, communicate, and do than that. We got into doing living room shows. And so what Toby and I were loving was just connecting with people. And like, I wanted to process my ideas and be known by people. And performing on a stage, you just play your thing. It's over. It's like, yeah, but I'm not just a guitarist. I have things I want to think about and talk about, and I want to share these ideas. I just want to process my stuff out there. And I hate, hate, hate writing and reading. I'm not good at it. I don't like it. I don't like typing. I don't have any kind of handwriting. I don't like school and doing writing and reading. It's homework to me. I hate it. But I like to communicate. And podcasting wasn't here yet. And so we were doing these living room shows and connecting with people, and with the content that we had, it was very much like related to Emery or Emery's lyrics, where you're processing through your upbringing or your religious this or just whatever that is, where you're processing where you come from and where you're going, was on our minds, on our hearts. And we would do it and talk to people, and it just like, well, I guess we got to do a blog, I guess. So we're going to make ourselves try to communicate our ideas. You got to type them and put them in a website. It was like, fuck, sucks. But it's the only thing we could do other than like do the living room shows. But so it was connected to that. And the name that we came up with, it was pretty bad overall, especially in the domain sense. It was un-learning.org. And that is very funny. But the concept of unlearning was mine. And I just felt that was what everything feels like. It's like you grow up in this system of things, and then you have to analyze and go, well, wait a minute. Is it that way? Do I want it that way? Is that how I think? What is it? What is it supposed to be? What is it really? How limited is that? And then you have to do this unlearning process, which later people might have started using the word deconstruction, and it has its own loaded everything. But that's what it still feels like to me, is questioning the assumptions to have it become your own points of view is a process that I very much think is the one that people need to be doing, and the one that I am big on and actively do. So anyway, we were blogging our ideas of what we were processing at that time, un-learning.org. So it was like the unlearning blog, would call. And we did that with our friend Joey, who originally was supposed to be in the band, then turned out to be being a pastor the whole time we were in Emery, and we got back together to communicate these ideas. And then during that time, it was like, well, I think we might have had the idea to become Bad Christian right before or around the podcast, but I know it wasn't an unlearning podcast. So we must have thought go to Bad Christian first, and then okay, we're going to change to Bad Christian. That's a better encapsulation. That's going to be catchier, and we're going to start a podcast. And that was right around 2013. But we probably were blogging in 2012. Now that I think about it.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so like I said, that was what I had picked up on. Somebody kind of shared one of those, and then that was what I picked up on, and then just kind of picked up the podcast once I knew it was coming
That's awesome.
around, and
So
yeah, I
you've
mean
been
it
on the
was
whole journey. That's all. That's more than 10 years alone on that whole journey.
yeah. So and that caught me at a really formative time for myself. I was going through some of that deconstruction, that unlearning, just really challenging a lot of my background and my growing up beliefs and all of that. And so having the Emery to sort of have that connection and connect to, and then you guys kind of talking about some things that I was already mentally processing through myself is yeah, there was a lot of things, right? Just a lot of
Cool.
things that really brought me along that journey. So um, I want to get into some more of the meat of this here. I know you got limited time, but I want to start out with just some rapid fire questions. Normally on my show, I do a segment called Quick Hits. This is a little different than what I normally do for Quick Hits. Usually, Quick Hits are I do 3 facts, a little more unknown or obscure facts about whatever artist or album that I'm covering for the week. For you, I wanted to change it up a little bit and just do a little quick, like this or that, sort of rapid fire questions. You just give me the first thing that comes to your mind just to get the guests a little bit more familiar with who you are, okay?
Got it.
All right, so first one, cake or pie?
Oh, pie.
Oh, I'm with you. It's just superior, right? In
Yeah.
in every way. Do you have a favorite pie?
I like well, okay, so for all sweets, I'm gonna say that even cake or pie, neither are my favorite. I'm believing candy, but I think it's closer to a drug. I'm into the drug sugar. So if it's the more like it's bread, the less candy like it is. And pie, I'm gonna like the sweeter ones if it's a lemon meringue or a chocolate pie. I'm looking for the closest concentration of the most sugar and the least bread. And so a really sweet kind of pie with the most sugar density is good. So maybe even a pecan pie is good there. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking for sugar, like a
All right.
drug. So
Yeah, I'm a pumpkin pie guy, so we're
okay.
coming out of my big season here. It's hard to find
Mm.
those outside of the back half of the year.
If there's a cake argument, is the icing is the drug part of the cake, but the bread part of the cake I don't care about.
I, all right, summer or winter?
I ooh, that's actually I don't think I immediately react to that. I want to say winter. I think I'm just gonna say winter because I like cold. Um, it's seasonally difficult here in Seattle, like the darkness, but I just kind of have to embrace that. But I like the cold. I'm more productive. I like doing cold dips. I ski, and it's just like the summer is like lazy and hot, and it's like it's good. There's some good associations with summer, like being out of school and things like that. But I mean, I think I have to go winter.
Okay. Uh, cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Yep,
I don't
for
like
sure.
litter box. No need to fool with any of that. I'd rather pick up dog poop, and I don't really relate to cats as well. Even though some people that I respect somehow like cats, so I'm have to say there must be something okay about them, but I don't get it. I like the dog thing.
I'm with you. I grew up. I had a couple cats. One of them was like my best friend ever of all time. Now, my wife's allergic to cats, so we definitely can't have them. So we got 3 dogs, and they rule the house basically.
Cool.
So they're mostly all hers. Fender or Gibson?
Fender. Yeah, I mean I play Fender. I'm happy with it. I like it. If I had to look at the companies as a whole, yeah, Fender. But I like both. I mean I've spent time as a Gibson person, and currently I'm a Fender person. I think that's better. But I'm a fan of both. I've been both type of people. I might swing back one day. No, I mean my acoustic's a Gibson. It's an old Gibson, L50. It's from 1955, and I love it. But I mean electric. I play a Telecaster, and I don't want anything else.
Yeah, I think I picked up or read an article yesterday from when "We Do What We Want" came out, and one of the questions was gear, and I think you ran down in your live. You had a Fender, you had a Gibson and you had a first act, I think, or
First
something.
act, yeah.
So
That's
you
my.
kind of had a
If I'm
mix.
playing another guitar, it's this custom first act that I designed, and I love it. But I mean, I don't. That's not my primary guitar, but it is the number two. My number two guitar is a first act.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Still, yeah.
All right. Toby or Devin?
Oh, dang it! Can you narrow that down? I mean, my life is exactly balanced in having dependent on both of them, but for very different things.
Well, the argument is always which one's a better singer, right? I mean, I think they go back and forth about that. Toby always harps on himself for sounding like a rusty old plumber or something like that, I think
Mhm.
is what he says. I,
Well, Toby and I collaborate a bit more musically, and Toby is sang more of the songs that I've composed or arranged, and we're more partnered up. Devin is so self-sufficient musically that a lot of his songs he writes and arranges, and I kind of compose and arrange in a more symbiotic way with Toby. So, and that's been some of our biggest songs, and we have a little more output with Toby than Devin, but it's in that sense, that's what I had to say.
all right. I'm a Toby fan. If I could sing like anybody out there, I used to be Aaron Gillespie. I used to always just say, man, if I could sing like that dude. I mean, but he's got some pipes. But anymore, the older I get, the more I wish I had sort of the warmth that I feel like Toby carries a lot in his voice. It's something that I really appreciate.
Yeah, all three of them are good. I like doing things with all three.
East Coast or West Coast?
West Coast.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
it's. I think that's just the West Coast is better. It seems obviously better. I don't really. I mean, the only argument for the East Coast is like it's got older things and more history and stuff, so you can see why that is good. But coming west is more. There's it's more rewarding. It's better.
yeah.
I believe that's true.
There's a reason they call it the best coast, right?
Yeah, it's more it's less people and more cool weather and landscapes and terrain with
Yeah.
less people. So if you can figure out how to make that work, I mean, it is better than some little town in the random east. If you throw a dart random at the East Coast, it's I don't know, not as good. But some things about the East Coast are better.
Sure. Big shows or small shows?
Small. My favorite's living room. Like even when we do songs and stories, we go up to 100, 125 people. And if we wind up getting in a living room, we play this attic in Detroit, where you couldn't fit more than 60 people in there. Best possible situation to me. It's the best.
And that, I mean, I assume that, from what you talked about earlier, I assume that just kind of comes from your desire to connect and to engage and interact with people. Yeah.
My philosophy would include the quality of attention is what I index the most. So like there's a quality of attention and focus that you get as a performer where it feels like you have undivided attention of these people, and everything I do matters, and it's quiet, and you can go so far as to you're not even using a PA system, you're just making sounds, and the people are so in tune with you and focused on whatever you do in a way that feels supportive, not scary, because the quality of attention is there's 60 people, and it is everybody is on the exact same wavelength all the way in. You can't get that with 400 people. There's people in the back. They're doing they're talking. Somebody's at the bar. It's good. I love 400, 300. 1,000, I don't know. I don't love it. And anytime you play for more than that, it's not, I mean, it's cool in a vanity sense or to see a big crowd or to make more money, but it isn't better.
I had the opportunity to come see you guys. This is before it was songs and stories or anything. This would have been back in 20, I want to say 2017, 2016 maybe. It might have been summer of 2016 now that I think about it. You guys were out at Nashville, and it was a small little venue out there, and it was that sort of, I haven't been to songs and stories since you guys started doing songs and stories, but it was just all acoustic stuff. You guys took some questions, and I think that was the one of the first time I heard one of your country covers of one of your guys' songs. I guess was that sort of the thinking back to that, is that sort of a precursor to what some of those songs and story shows have been?
Right. So we started doing Toby and I started doing living room shows in 2011 or 12. And then you get to talk half the time and be interactive in those in that same connected way. That evolves into the podcast, and we've never lost the enjoyment of doing that. And right now, the best version of it is songs and stories with Devin. It's very clear. It's easy to sell tickets to people like wherever we go. Like we just put tickets up today for sale, and like 20 people bought them in Knoxville in the first few minutes. Like, okay, it's Knoxville. Okay, cool. Like, never been there. And just, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, good. I mean, there's people everywhere, 50, 100 people, whatever you need to have one of those good shows. And you can just pick a city and people are ready to go. And it's just awesome. I mean, so yeah, that's what it feels like. That's what we do now whenever we want to go do weekend shows and do something. That's what we just go to any city and make it happen. Find a place, go to a house, go to a coffee shop, a little venue, whatever it is going to be, and it's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to. Hopefully, you guys can make it this way at some point. It's been a while, a few years since you guys have been to Springfield. I think last time was with Hawthorne Heights, right?
What venue was it?
The Riff.
Can't remember it, but yeah, I mean, I know we've been to Springfield and Joplin. Oh, Springfield is where. What's the name of that venue though? This downtown.
The Outland.
Outland Ballroom. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I think of when I think of Spring. I love Springfield. I love it.
I've seen you guys. I saw you guys a couple times at the Outland. I know once was when you did the question. It was, I think, would have been their 10 year.
Yeah,
The 10 year.
10 year of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, I
was
like that place. That's good.
Yeah, that's a good venue. Seth does a really good job.
Yeah,
out
Seth's
here
awesome.
bringing
We
some
just
good
did a show
bands.
with Seth in Kansas City a couple weeks ago. It was great.
Yeah, Record Bar. Yeah, that was a Monday night. It's hard to get out 2.5 hours.
Sold out Monday night, 400 people
Yeah,
in Kansas City. It's like, yeah, thank
that's
you.
crazy.
It's great. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Now that was on the tour you guys just wrapped up, right? With
Mm-hmm.
Aaron and In Shallow Seas We Sail. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. How was that?
Well, we did the whole year of just doing In Shallow Seas We Sail stuff all last year. We started by recording the video special version of it, the In Shallow Seas We Sail live, made that on vinyl. Then we did our first show in Seattle where we just worked out how we were going to do it live for the year. And that was a very special show, one off, and that was terrific to do. And then we did a few legs through the year where we would go around trying to get it in as many places as we could. And then the final leg was just this December, and Gillespie went with us on that and did the almost full band. So we had In Shallow Seas We Sail. We just finished doing it, so that's done. Not going to play those songs again, not for a while, or at least most of them, or some of them. I don't know when we'll ever play again. So we gave that its time, and it was kind of sad that Monday night last show in Kansas City I was like, oh yeah, this song number 7 or 8 on this album. When will we play it again? It's not, I don't know when. But so we gave that our, all, and we got the video documentation of us doing it, our best version of that, which turned out really good. So that was really special to do it all year. And then we're going to move on to the week's end. But the almost was really fun because Dave and Chris and I were the backup band for the almost. So I played bass for the almost on that whole run, and Chris played guitar and sang, and Dave played drums. And Dave's the perfect drummer for the almost has had some good drummers, but Dave is the perfect one. So me and Dave are the rhythm section, and it was so fun to get up there and do a 45-minute set with Aaron, and then do a changeover and play In Shallow Seas We Sail. So it was fun. It was a fun tour.
I saw some of the videos from the tour, and when I saw you guys playing Southern Weather with Aaron, I didn't realize that was how that was going to go, and so I think I looped that video probably 5 or 6 times just because I was just Dave is one of my favorite drummers all time. He's just so good. That's my background. Growing up, I was in percussion, in marching band, and played set for a while. So drumming is kind of what my ears key into most often. Number one, it usually goes drums, vocals, and then guitar work. And
I see.
Yeah, so watching that, and of course being a big fan of Aaron, and that album is just it's a great
It's fun.
classic. Like,
And now I
yeah,
know it inside and out and have had the experience, embodying it on stage. So that's cool. Like, it's just, we got a long history with Aaron, and it feels like it's just, I mean, I'm sure that like I don't know how to say it, but it's good with us playing with Aaron is good. We're easy. We feel good and connected, and I know all the little parts, and I loved playing bass. And me and Dave and Chris are already locked together anyway. And then just boom, like learn those songs and work them up with Aaron was very instinctual and pure. So it was very, very, very good. Very, very satisfying to play with another band, but still play real like another elite level band that's good and be good at songs that people know, and just get to jump over and do that. That's kind of rewarding, I should say.
that's a really cool thing. I mean, we talked about it. It's been over 20 years now. What is it like prepping for a tour now compared to when you first started out doing this stuff?
Well, you could say that the biggest difference is the preparation is minor to none for a tour musically. In if Emery's just going to play some tour date, and we get like we could say we're going to go do a festival, and we're going to play 9 songs. I mean, it's not like we need to practice those 9, the ones we have played the most. It's not, so what is there to do? What is there to do? You just show up and nail it. Like, make sure the set list is good, make sure you feel good about the transition, make sure your headspace is good. But it's not musically much to do. And when you have to prepare for an album playthrough tour, it's like, oh, we got to dig up this song and figure out how to make it feel right. Then there's something to do. So it just really kind of depends on what you're doing musically in that way. So yeah, preparing for an album playthrough tour is kind of, I'm not saying it's annoying, but it's like you have to make sure to make space, because there's some songs on that album we played 500 times literally, and then there's some song we've never played before, and it's hard to get them to be as good. So that's the work to make that those both of those sound the same amount of good, because you don't know all the little, and plus there's just some songs you recorded that don't have this history of getting worked out live. And then by the time, within Shallow Seas, by the end of the year, it's like, oh, that's how that song really wanted to be, but took maybe all the performances to figure out what it was really asking for, when you could really be dynamic or get quiet in a verse. Like, you have to just spend the time with an act to get it to polish. But to prep, all you can do is like know it and then show up and see what happens.
Yeah, I would imagine it's you're just having to reteach yourself some of those things that you wrote so many years ago. And then on top of when you're recording, that process of playing for a recording is so very different than working out a track for a live performance. In a studio, you play it and play it and play it and you play it until you hit every note, or you take multiple takes and kind of splice them together to make sure that it sounds just the way you want it to. Live, you don't get a chance to do that. You have
Right.
to make it work.
I think it's really something is actually really backwards about all of it. And I've always had this real tension between live and recording, and but everything about it is like wrong and backwards is basically, but I don't think it's really a solve for it. I would think about it this way. If you just think about like maybe jazz or something or some other, music used to be, before technology got as involved as it is, and I'm a technology fan and all that, but it used to be that people would get together and they would play music, and they would just play it until they could play it really good. Maybe you've seen a choir director where they practice a million times on a song until it's like get every part perfect, until the magic's happening in the room. And then at some point people are like, oh, we can record this thing. It used to just be people playing live, people playing on their porch. And then somebody goes, I got this microphone thing. Let's try to record that magic y'all are doing. And so since the history of recorded music, that technology's gotten better and better. And then when you're able to mass produce it and send it out or broadcast it on the radio, it started to become where you needed the recording took precedent over the live performance thing. And at that point, when you're trying to directly create recorded music, something has gotten weird. Like, something is now, you may have lost the tether to reality, trying to synthesize a recording directly when you don't, in fact, know what the song should be or is or how it would work if you had played it 100 times in a 1,000 times together. Then you would be ready to record it, but you can't go make your second album and have played those songs 500 times. You can't. You have to simply write them and then go straight to recording. It's not like you can go work them out on open mics or be a local band for another 2 years. You can't do that. So how do you know what the song should be like if you haven't played it in front of people? Or you're not doing but live recordings are no good, and you don't get all those opportunities to go do it. But you just think about jazz or something where they're playing those songs every night. Eventually, there's some magical day where they record John Coltrane and they get together, but they know what they're doing, and then they make the thing happen, and it's captured in a recording. So now we go straight to trying to generate fire recordings. And I don't know if we know what we're doing all the time. When I say we, I mean all musicians. I don't know if they know what they're doing. And so and then again, these songs we recorded on the Shallow Seas We Sail, I never played them live until this year, and we got to play them, 35 times live. And by the 35th time, I'm thinking, oh, I think I understand what this song wants to be now. But we had to record it. So yeah, the recording sounds good, or you can edit, or you can punch in, but you don't really know what it wants to be. And that's the predicament that I think we find ourselves in as recording artists, fundamentally.
Hey everyone, we're going to take a real quick break and I'll get you back to the interview in just a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by the new single from my good friends in LOL. I've mentioned them before on the podcast. They are responsible for my opening song. Mr. Chris, that is doing vocals and keys for LOL, he actually composed that song and gave that to me, so thank you so much, Chris. LOL has a new song out now. It's called Let's Not Split Hairs Here. You should definitely go check it out. These guys are based out of Minnesota and North Carolina. They've got that early 2000s emo vibe, and they really are just good dudes. So be sure to go check out the song. I'm going to play a little clip for you right now, and I hope you enjoy. Make sure to find that wherever you listen to music.
And we'll pretend you never make mistakes. Each time you tell me that I'm wrong, no matter how hard I try, it's not good enough. I put myself on the line. My heart is breaking inside, but I'll survive. I'm just fine.
Thanks again to LOL. That was Let's Not Split Hairs Here. Again, go find them wherever you listen to music and follow early 2000s, emo vibe, fans of Stray Light Run, Taking Back Sunday, the Get Up Kids, any of those groups. So go check it out. LOL, spelled phonetically, ELOWEL. We will get you back to the interview. Yeah, I think that's something, on the theme of the podcast, right, is I'm listening to, heavy metal that kind of started out in the 70s and especially took off in the early 80s. And when you hear and you listen to these bands who, especially in the 70s, a lot of it, almost all of it was analog. It was a lot of times it was just multiple mics in one room, and it's the whole band just doing a take of the song and doing that over and over even until they get that right. There's just a noticeable difference in sound, and there's a noticeable difference in the tone of the instruments. One thing I've remarked on, and I actually had a note here, so we'll jump around in my notes a little bit because I know we don't have a ton of time left, but one of my notes here was the tone of bass guitar in y'all's albums. And going back through and listening to early 70s heavy metal, the bass guitar is its own thing. I mean, you can really hear it driving on a lot of those older albums. And I feel like that's an instrument that a lot of bands have really shied away from showcasing in a lot of their music. You guys, I've listened to in prep for this, and not that I'm not familiar with all of it, but I started at the Week's End, and I worked my way all the way through, rubbed some dirt on it multiple times, and I just noticed more so than ever the bass tone. Is that a conscious decision?
Love the question. It's an evolution. It's all evolution, of course, because there's not. It's not as if we knew what we were doing when we started. We did not know what we're doing. We're trying to do what is done or what we could access or what people told us to do. Whatever. We're just trying to make. When we're making the week's end, it's like, what is bass? How does it work? I don't know. It wasn't the most intentional, but it's become a lot more intentional and organic. So right by the time you get to rub some dirt on it in the evolution of Emery bass, I can tell you, I could talk an hour about the evolution of Emery's bass approach and the parts and everything. But working backwards from where it is now, we sound very, very good because we have simplified the bass into this rhythm instrument that's distorted, where Devin is primarily playing the bass, and Devin is the singer. And so Devin is strumming that bass very similar. He's playing very simple parts. He's got great timing. He's not trying to noodle all around because he's trying to sing and do other things. He's playing it more basically, pardon the pun, and we got this drivey distortion on it. And his right hand is so locked in to playing with Dave and singing. It's like a lead singer with an acoustic guitar strumming and driving the whole ship. Imagine the power created with Dave Powell crushing it, and then Devin locked in singing and strumming the distorted bass. Just those two people. What are they generating? Almost everything. Almost everything. Now, I'm free to just decorate on guitar because it's heavy, it's low, it's powerful, it's rhythmically locked, and it's that just simple, locked in rhythm by the singer driving it. Like, how the singer is somehow tied to that rhythm, not in a technical way, just in a pure way. So it's like follow Devin. If Dave and Devin are locked, it's done. The rest of us are just decorating. And that is special. So that's where we've landed that I really love. Earlier in the evolution, it would have been more about bass parts or musicianship or something that's less. That's cool too. Like some of those really unique bass arrangements I've been really partial to and loved. But Devin rocking it simply locked in with Dave creates something great. So that heavy, distorted, rumbly bass going for it is fun.
Yeah, it's something that I, again, just grew sort of a new appreciation for. I've said it a lot on my show where I'm talking about some of these older records about how much I just love the bass tone that comes out, going back to Black Sabbath's first album and, even getting into some of the earlier like Motorhead stuff and all of those. I just feel like the bass guitar was so much more pronounced in that era and in that time period. And again, the tonality of it all, I just feel like going back through your guys' records, that was just something that really stood out to me and wanted to ask about that.
Let me just do a little more thoughts on bass because they're so fresh to me because I just played bass on this Almost tour. And so the bass is especially powerful. It gets like shit on a little bit. It's like, oh, bass play, like you can play basic stuff and it's like you can play the roots. But it's really still about the right hand. And I've been recording bass and arranging bass for 20 years, but playing the bass live on a good sound system with a good crowd where it's all connected right. I just had my first experience of doing that. And my distinct sense was I'm playing these big venues, these big sound systems. And I go, wait a minute. There's a kick drum in the subwoofer. Like when the big subs in a big PA system hit, there's a kick drum that goes boom, boom. And it's got a lot of gaps between it. And no other sound is going into the subwoofer except me. Ha! I am in control of the subwoofer, which is the best part of going to a live show is feeling that bass hitting you in the chest. And that's my job. Who gives a shit what note I'm playing? I am locking this in and I am pushing the air in this room onto all these people. And that's why it feels good. I am so powerful. The subwoofer is mine to control the air moving around in the room. And I just thought, wow. And that's true, not just live, but in a recording. If you get it right, the bass has its own space. And yeah, the kick drum's in there, but even half of the kick drum is a high clicky sound. So the kick drum is like a little pulse going, and the rest is the bass. That whole space, nobody else can touch it. So that's special.
That's really cool. To shift a little bit here, what for you guys, when you think back historically and getting started out, I guess for me, this is a sort of a two-part. So I want to know for you personally, what bands and artists and musicians sort of inspired you to start playing music, and then in particular heavy music? And then what bands and artists do you think have been the most influential into Emery's sound as a unit?
Okay, I think I can do that pretty clear. Hopefully I won't go on too long about it. But I personally was in the 90s in rural South Carolina, and all the music around me was horrible. It was acoustic guitar, capo, people wearing Birkenstocks, playing Hootie and the Blowfishes from South Carolina, a bunch of people playing horrible worship guitar. I did not like that. Like I got a guitar, I learned the open chords and stuff, and I was like, ugh, this sucks. Why can't I, when I heard Nirvana, like that Nirvana came out when I was in 7th, 8th grade, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then a few years later, I was like, wait a minute. Oh, I got a guitar. Oh, I could learn guitar. How do I do that? And I'm learning open chords and thinking, this isn't it though. How do you do that? And it was not available to me. There was no, there was no electric guitars around me or people in bands or anything like that. But I had an acoustic guitar and I had a chord chart, and I couldn't figure out how this was supposed to do that. I didn't understand that. So I thought I had an acoustic electric actually for some reason. And I thought I need an amp. And so I just begged my parents and somehow got an amp or whatever. So I took my acoustic electric and I plugged into that amp, and I thought this is going to be it. And it was not. It was a louder acoustic guitar, and I was so disappointed because I was so powerfully moved by the distortion, the grunge, the stuff but I had no personal experience with it. Just some of it was hitting rock radio when I was a 8th grader, 9th grader kind of thing. And now I know some guitar chords, and yeah, I know power chords, and I even can play a Green Day song or a Nirvana song, but it doesn't sound like that. Nothing is happening. It's plinky little acoustic nothing, and I hate all that strummy acoustic Hootie and the Blowfish crap. That was the way I was feeling at the time. And even when I got an amp, I was so sad. Until and even when you talk about that 70s metal stuff, like they had to get amps and they had to turn them all the way up and try to get them to distort or whatever that is, and that was supposed to be a malfunction of the amp, but that's what I was looking for. But anyway, one day I went to somebody's house and they had an electric guitar, and they not only had an electric guitar and had an amp, but they had an orange Boss distortion pedal. And when I plugged that in and put my fingers on the guitar and pushed that pedal, and it did that, my life was changed. My life has changed forever. That's what I was looking. I was like, that's it. That's the thing that makes the thing happen. This crazy. And so, but that is definitely just that plain regular way of distorting an electric guitar on a power chord. And to me, it was just Weezer, Nirvana. It was just that. And I finally found out how those sounds were made. There wasn't YouTube. There wasn't nothing. I had a chord chart and acoustic guitar and a bunch of capo playing fools around me. If I could find a musician, we did not have the same thing in common,
Yeah.
So that was leading me down this path to eventually find the whole thing that we're in, but that is that simple really for me. So it's just that aggression that came in punk alternative that I finally figured out how you make those sounds.
that dirtiness, right? That comes.
And what my friend said? They said, Matt, distortion is just a way to hide mistakes. I'll say, whatever this is, I want out of here. I moved to Seattle and started playing. I was like that's an oversimplification, but I know that was sanctimonious crap. I was like, you are so stupid. Distortion is the good thing. You get out of here. I mean, sure, it's sloppy or whatever, but maybe that's good too. Who knows?
Yeah. What? So then, how does that transition into? I mean, what's if as far as the band is concerned, what I tried to really key into a lot of your guitar parts, and to me, I hear more jazz or even alternative like indie music in your guitar playing in the band, and just cleaner guitar parts as a whole. So I guess for you in the band, what has that been? What has influenced that sound through there?
All right. And I'd skip the other part of your question, which is at Emery's direct inception. I'll try to connect these two. When Emery was becoming Emery, what were those influences? And by that time, we had found punk, indie, underground, rock, emo, screamo, like things that we were understanding was beyond what was on radio rock or new metal, which was before that. It's all we could find. So, and this is in college for us. It's pretty late finding it from where we came from. But in those times, I mean, we were actually discovering just Zayo, Hopes Fall, Sunny Day Real Estate, things like that. And were really speaking to us. And then we're like, oh, we can just do what, and then open this palette where we could do everything. It's like, oh, we're free to really create and do things not in a normal way. There's every possibility. Pedro the Lion. So from Pedro the Lion to Zayo, between those, we were like, oh, we were unlocked and free. Me and Devin and Toby all at once were like, oh, so we can just do whatever we want. And then and it really to me is still all about density and complexity. That's what I think I might particularly bring. In that I like jazz. Yes, I've studied jazz. I'm a jazz hobbyist. I can't go to a jazz gig and play, but I play jazz because I like the density of the harmonic structures. I like big chords with 7 notes in them, or 4, or a weird note, or whatever. I mean, really not 7 notes, but 4 and 5 note chords at least. I'm looking for weird tones to be mixed in there. I'm looking for not exactly, sometimes dissonance, but more about complexity, sometimes dissonance. And so that density and complexity is what I'm kind of after, not lead and I come from that lead and rhythm, and it's like, okay, but do either soloing or strumming open chords. That's dumb to me. What's in between? How much can I do? Make one guitar do this and the other guitar do this, and it all works together, orchestrated. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to bring and make things complex.
And so, does that drive your creative decision making when you're composing? Is it just, are you thinking more about the big picture structure and how all of those parts are going to work together in the long run, versus
Yes.
noodling a riff and really hitting this riff and then building a song around it?
Yes. I mean, sometimes I'll stumble on a riff. It's like, oh, that's like a guitar player's guitar part. But I'm probably more of a composer, arranger, as far as if what I do that's most special is probably that. It's not that I'm the best guitar player or I write these epic riffs. I'm arranging for me and my friends to all do something interesting together all at the same time. Like sometimes I need the drum pattern to be a certain way. Sometimes I'm just reacting to a drum pattern that the drummer's doing. But I'm thinking about all of them all at the same time. And then sometimes I get lost in a guitar part that feels continuous, or, oh, this is just a guitar riff, and then build around it. But I'm mostly thinking, if I'm doing this and he's doing that and he does that, and what happens if we all do this and then put that stop there? And, but then it's like, what complexities can be built with all of the instruments.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's more of how I think.
Yeah, that's such a cool way to approach it. I feel like I think it gives that more depth of sound, and you just get a lot more layered components into all of your music that way.
Yeah. It's not that I'm trying to be a rock god or like good at soloing exactly or anything like that. Sometimes I'll like, oh, I'm doing a solo. That's cool. That's fun. But that's not primary.
I was gonna say, I noticed there was a song. Is this the real life? At like the 2-minute mark, near the close of the song, you have like a guitar solo, and the note I made was just, what happened to guitar solos? I mean, they dominated, the band scene forever, and now you just hardly ever hear them. And that struck me.
Well, there's a complexity with that, is that you come out of glam hair metal when I'm still, before grunge broke in, I was hearing music and not really liking it so much until the alternative and grunge came in, and they were kind of anti-guitar solo, as in avoiding the flashiness and the virtuoso and going for the raw and the stuff like that. So at that time, when I really started playing guitar solos weren't even cool, and they were hard, and I wasn't that good anyway. So I never thought I want to be a shredder. Then later on, as the cycles go, that became more popular. So there was and I really connect that to YouTube. So by 2006 or 7, people are learning guitar. I learned in 96, but in 2006, if you're learning guitar, wow, you can just like learn stuff amazingly with this visual technology and the internet and slowing stuff down or whatever. And it's like enabled this next generation of like solo-y and leady people. But I that's just not, I wasn't in that really. But every now and then we're doing something and Toby will go, why don't you just do something badass? Like, why don't you just do a guitar solo? I'm like, well, because I feel a little insecure about it. So I'm not trying to do it, and I come from the time when it was not seen as cool. So to say, hey, everybody shut up and listen to me solo is not like, that's a little bit past the boundary for me. But that becomes appropriate just in subverting what is the norm. So sometimes I find it appropriate, but even still, like when that solo's happening, it's probably the third. This is another funny thing about Emery, is a lot of times you've got 3 or 4 people competing for attention on stage or in a recording. That's abnormal. Producers don't like it. Traditional stuff doesn't like that. For some reason, it works to have in Emery 2 people singing, 1 person screaming, and somebody trying to get a bunch of attention on guitar at the same time instead of taking turns. So that's one of those situations, because that's what the best vocal part of the song, Devin singing, Toby singing, is really going for it. And then now I can't remember if I'm talking about the right song in the right place, but is that just a guitar solo by itself, or isn't it while everybody else is doing shit?
So I think
we do that a lot.
I think it layers in Toby. I was going to try to pull it up real quick and see. I don't know if I'll be able to, but I think it layers in Toby and Devin. It's the ba 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 ba, and it just kind of that progressive scale that you walk up. Yeah,
it's not like the vocalists stop when I start, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's
so
just
it's the 3
there,
leads. 3 people trying to get the attention at that moment. And we do that all the time with Josh on stage, whatever. Sometimes it's Toby, Josh, me, and Devin all on stage, and it's like, who are you supposed to be paying attention to? It's like, almost it's not a competition, but it's like a cacophony on purpose. So sometimes, like doing flashy guitar, maybe, sometimes we're just all going for it at the same time,
overwhelm the senses, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's just is what it is. I mean, it might be limiting in some ways or less accessible or more chaotic, but I don't know. It's just what seems right.
Well, listen, I know you're short on time, but I just want to take a moment, I guess, and close out with, you brought up 20-year anniversary of Walls. Of course, you guys announced the Songs and Stories, not Walls, the Week's End. I think it's basically
that's
Walls,
just the same thing.
right?
Yeah, easy to say that.
You guys announced the Songs and Stories shows today. I saw tell everybody what's to look forward to for Emery and Matt Carter in 2024.
Well, it's Week's End all year. I mean, it's a big deal that was 20 years ago and that people care about it today. It was completely unforeseen. Like, in that time, there still wasn't, people really weren't interneting, really. I mean, there was an internet, but it was like, you didn't understand, it just didn't make sense. It was just, if you're in a band and you can get anybody to pay attention today, that's crazy, but that you will be forgotten the very next day. It didn't, like, the second you didn't play a show would be the last time anybody thought about you, was what it felt like. And you're a band, so your band's probably going to last a year or 2. And if you could get some big shows or do something, or maybe get a recording made, that would be cool. But you didn't have any sense that it would have its own life or momentum. So the fact that, if the band breaks up and some bands broke up in whatever year, and they just get streamed all the time, and they have fan clubs, and it's like the band and the recordings wind up having a life of their own in a way that's like, oh, they don't even need me. Like if we all die, it's going to still be, the weekend's still going to go. Isn't that crazy? And so it feels fortunate to get to still be here, get to participate, get to still make commentary musically or verbally about what I think about the songs. But the songs are out there, and the people that have the songs and ponytail parades and walls mean stuff to people, and that affords us another opportunity to interact with it 20 years later. So that's what this year is about for us. It's a gratitude kind of a thing. We're gonna probably make some money. We get to play for people. We get to travel. We get to hang out with each other. We get to make podcasts about it. No possible way that you could have wanted that or thought that or planned for that or thought you deserved that or it could even imagine the possibility of any of that. And here we are. So that's where we are today. And I don't know, I have no idea if it still feels like, yeah, but it'll be over, really over probably another year from now. That's what every year it feels like, well, next year, this is probably all over with, I'm sure.
All of what you just described is something I have like a hard time even really reconciling or fathoming having it. I mean, I guess for me, even just having this podcast out, it's like I'm getting highlights of stuff I was doing on TikTok a year ago, and just knowing that is just there, and
it's separate from me. It's separate from you. Are not. I am not Emery. I'm a person. You know what I mean? Emery exists. The Week's End exists. Their creations. Your podcast exists. It's external. It's distinct from you, and it's real, and it has its own something. That's great. I just did not understand that, and I think a lot of people. It's the most common mistake. I'm sorry to interrupt you and soapbox it, but it's the worst thing anybody can do is not understand that they are separate from their art. You got the people that are the most screwed up think, I am the band. No, you're not. You're a person. You made this thing, and the fact that it's separate from you and still lives and has a trajectory, that's the special thing. But if you can't separate your identity from that thing, that's not good. But yes, your podcast exists. It's out there. It does stuff without you being involved. It does stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's very, very wild. So anything else that you just want to wrap up or let the audience fans know before we close out?
No, that you let me espouse my moral case there for how to think about art and identity. I've seen it, derail. I mean, it can and does go wrong for people when they cling to it or can't separate or whatever. But yeah, I really think everybody has stuff to make and create that's distinct from them and put it out there. It's very cool. I've been listening to the Rick Rubin book, and some people think he's a goofball or just making stuff up or whatever, but I think a lot of what he says is like, yeah, okay, that is maybe even basic what he says, but I think there's wisdom in that approach. So lately for me, that's been, so I'd recommend that book and just see what you think about it. If you take and leave whatever, in there, but that philosophy kind of feels resonant with me. And maybe I don't think it would have in the past, 10 plus years ago, and seems like it makes more sense, today.
Yeah. I'll be sure to check that out. Well, Matt, man, seriously, thank you so much for your time today. I couldn't be more elated to have had this time to talk with you and just pick your brain and ask you some questions and get this all put together. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Dalton. I enjoyed it. I feel like I'm glad it helped me right away to understand that you've been around for a long time, or you even know the podcast version of me and have from the beginning. I think the whole journey made it very easy for me to connect here. So I've totally enjoyed the time.
Yeah, great. Well, and hopefully you make your way back to Springfield sometime in the near future and catch up that way and see you guys and get to enjoy some of the live goodness that is in
We'll
there.
do it.
So,
That'll be great. I'll let you know when we come through, but I'm sure you'll find out. But message me when we do.
Okay, perfect. Matt, you have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you later. All right.
Right on.
There it is. Again, Matt, thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it. It was such a blast to speak with you and hear your thoughts and insights into all things music, the history behind Emery, and some of your biggest influences. Just really grateful for your time. Thanks to all of you for tuning in and listening this week. As always, make sure to go leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this, and like and share this wherever you see on socials. You can find me on Facebook and TikTok, the Evolution Podcast, both there. And if you'd like to do any kind of financial support, there is a link in the Spotify bio for you to be able to do that. So I appreciate you all. I hope you have a wonderful week. We will see you next time.